Lead. Now, I know everybody is banging on about how cool microplastics are to have in the body these days, but nobody's giving lead the respect it deserves, for all its hard work in making us sick over the years. Lead's time's not done, you see. Lead's making a comeback. In a study done by the Journal of Child Psychology and Psychiatry, it emerged this week that lead might be the cause of a plethora of mental illnesses. We're talking like over 150 million cases in the United States attributable to lead in stuff. And that's not accounting for the rest of the world. Toys, paint, pipes, you name it. People used to just love shoving lead into things. Now, I'm not saying that Mom used to go to the grocery store and choose between leaded and unleaded milk, but it was in a lot of things. Now, what impact does that have on the human body, you might wonder? I'm glad you asked, because I'm going to tell you. Even if you turn off the video, I will come round to your house and yell through the letterbox. You can call the cops and tell them, "Officer, there's a strange Scotsman yelling through the letterbox. He's yelling helpful facts about lead." And I don't even have a letterbox. I'm very confused about what's happening. The good news is, well, it's bad news, but I'm trying to put a positive spin on it, is that it has a negative effect on every organ in your body. All your squishy parts, including your brain. According to Dr. Aaron Rubin, one of the study's authors, he said to CNN, "Millions of Americans are walking around with an unknown, invisible history of lead exposure that has likely influenced for the worse how they think, feel, and behave." Yes, he just called you dumb, but with science. This isn't a new thought from Rubin. He's been talking about it for some time now. According to a 2002 New Scientist article by Claire Wilson, the effects of lead in petrol have caused the average national IQ to drop by 2.6 points. And then there's a drop of 5.9 in people from the mid to late 60s. They put lead in gasoline to make the engines run smoother. It wasn't meant to have the same effects on human brains. If you're the parent or grandparent of a millennial and feel that they think they're smarter than you, well, yeah, they might be. By a very small amount, on average. So, where does that leave us? We know there is a problem, but we've been phasing out harmful lead for decades. The US got rid of leaded gas in 1996, and here in the UK we were a bit slower on the uptake, and we did it in 2000. It was taken out of paint, pipes. If you look at the timeline, it's 70s, 80s, and 90s. It's like they looked at the problem and thought, okay, let's do one good thing a decade. But there are lots of places that still have lead in them. Many old houses will have lead in them. The soil that they're built on might have lead in it. So if you're doing any work or you're buying an older house, it might be worth having that checked just to be on the safe side, in case you need to address it. And this next one's coming out of Missouri. A woman who was wrongly convicted of murder and forced to spend 43 years of her life in prison is now free. Sandra Hemme was falsely accused and convicted of killing Patricia Jensky in St. Joseph, Missouri, and was convicted of the crime the following year. This happened during a time when she was dealing with mental illness and was heavily medicated in hospital when speaking with the police. She would be led in statements which were inconsistent with the crime, and it seems she had no obvious connection with the victim. A combination of police hiding evidence to protect one of their own and a poor defense attorney are also cited as being factors in the overturning of the conviction. The case is pretty messy when you get into the details of it. Hemme was arrested and confessed to the crime through coercion, but later filed a motion to recant that confession when she was thinking more clearly, saying that she had been misled by her representation. The initial conviction was overturned in 1984, and she was convicted in the second trial, which occurred in 1985. With no evidence being shown, they only relied on the confession that she said was misleading, she'd been misled into making. The police did have another suspect, a former police officer by the name of Michael Holman. Holman was seen near Jensky's house caught using her credit card to buy a camera the day after her murder. It was claimed that he just happened to find it in the place he was staying. He also quit the force a week after her death. Hairs found in Patricia's bed showed similarities to Holman. He would be found years later in possession of her earrings, and would even eventually go to prison for an unrelated crime, and he passed away in 2015, so he'll never be tried for it. We'll never know for sure either way. But you had two suspects, one of whom there's evidence against, one of whom there wasn't. But Sandra's now free, 64 years old. She spent most of her life in prison, more time behind bars than any other wrongly convicted woman. Let's hope she has a good few years left to enjoy her freedom and the huge payday that she probably has coming with any luck. We'll see. I have good news for thirsty people in China. OnlyFans is now able to freely operate in the country. Apparently, OnlyFans gives creators 90% of their revenue. Really? I mean, YouTube only gives 55%. Fiverr, they take a 20% cut. Maybe I should set one up. I mean, it's worth noting that while its bread and butter is indeed spicy content, it can be used for other things. Some musicians use it. I believe some artists also use it. Possibly other people. Don't know what they're doing. Possibly music and art. But it can be used. I'm going to move on so I don't make a meal out of it, or make any dirty, filthy jokes. Or the joke about how I could set up a fans account, because I've got quite a few fans. I'm not going to do that, because that would be tacky. And the long story short is that can only be good for creators, because the fact is China is the third largest economy in the world. It's right behind the US being the biggest, then the EU, and it's actually very close behind the EU if you look at stats. This ban lifting was done without fanfare, which suggests it was accidental and they haven't realized it yet and it will be rectified soon. Or, more likely, someone higher up got tired of paying for a bloody VPN to see them. Sweet American titties. We all love those. Anyway. Next up, TEMU. Speaking of China, TEMU has been banned in Vietnam. TEMU, for those who don't know, is a Chinese-owned online retailer. Very much like Shein. And if you don't know what Shein is, it's a Chinese-owned online retailer very much like TEMU. And by very much, I mean very, very much. I looked at both of them earlier. Not just for research purposes, I'm looking for some items myself. I need a 3/4 length winter coat, it's getting cold. Separately owned and ran, and fulfilling the same purpose. They sell clothing and other things. I think they sell tools. I've seen people do reviews of tools and things, some good, some bad. But they're well known for the clothing, because of what's known as fast fashion. Fast fashion being cheaply made, visually appealing products sold at low prices to consumers, many of which are made to resemble higher priced brand names, but not necessarily with the brand name on them, because that would be illegal. And that would be fine. People get stuff for low prices, we all want stuff for low prices, except it also leads to a lot of waste when things don't get sold. And no judgment if you have bought from them. As I said, I wasn't just looking for research earlier. I was tempted by those low prices and the cold weather. Times are tough. And we can't be running around naked this winter. That's what my OnlyFans is going to be for. They only started actually trading in Vietnam in October, but on the 5th of December, Vietnamese language options were dropped from the site. And they put up a notice that said they were working with the Vietnam E-Commerce and Digital Economy Agency and the Ministry of Industry and Trade to register its provision of e-commerce services in Vietnam. I have said Vietnam a lot, and yes, I am thinking of Robin Williams as I say it. I can't help it. So it sounds like it's more of an administrative cock-up here. Back to the OnlyFans again. More than any real drama. So, I expect they'll be back trading again soon. However, according to Associated Press, where you can read on this in more details, there are links in the description, they're already under investigation in Europe for selling potential illegal products, such as dangerous and fake items that don't meet expected requirements, and how quickly they regain access to the platform after being removed. This is one of several companies under investigation, AliExpress being another. The former Twitter is also under investigation by the European Commission and its Digital Services Act. We'll see what comes of it. I expect, at least as far as TEMU goes, it's just going to be a matter of ironing out the red tape and making sure they're in compliance. Where they're not in compliance, I doubt they want to shut the business down, because no one wins then. It's just a matter of making sure that they keep their nose clean. And if they don't, well, then I'm sure they will be shut down. There's always, like I say, there's plenty of more places like this. TEMU, Shein, even AliExpress sells much the same items as well. Although I think AliExpress has more. And I have bought things from them too. We'll see. And before we say goodbye today, we have some people to say goodbye to. First up, Scott L. Schwartz. Scott was born in 1959 and was known as a wrestler before he retired to pursue a full-time career in acting, where he impressed audiences with his work in the 3 Ocean's 11 movies. Never seen any of them. I think I saw the original Frank Sinatra one. But he played the character of Bruiser in that. A very tall man standing at 6'10", weighing about 300 pounds. He specialised in playing tough guy characters, unsurprisingly, as well as doing work throughout the 1990s and the 2000s in shows like Deep Space Nine, Angel, VIP, was even in The Mentalist and Castle, to name just a few of his appearances. Scott passed away in Covington, Louisiana, and is survived by Misty, his children, Angela and Adam, and he was 65 years old. I wonder who he played in Deep Space Nine. You all know what a big Star Trek fan I am. I should have looked it up. I meant to look it up. I'm going to do that when I'm done here. And lastly, we say farewell to the comedian Kabir Kabeezy Singh. Kabir cites that moving around as a child helped him develop a sense of humour as a way of fitting in and making friends. His family moved from Portland to India and then later back to the States when he was 13. In his comedy career, he appeared in Gabriel Iglesias' Stand-Up Revolution and even did some voice work for an episode of Family Guy. And that was years before he went to America's Got Talent and made it to the semi-finals. He appeared on Comedy Central, BBC Networks and others, and you can actually find officially, legally uploaded, his comedy special Bollywood on this very platform. He died in San Francisco. Cause of death is unknown at this time. He was only 39 years old. And that brings us to the end of this week in hell. Still tinkering about with the lighting, I finally, years after I bought the dang thing, got around to setting up my second Alexa, because recently during the Black Friday sales I'd bought some additional Wi-Fi bulbs so I could change the colour. I thought that might help with the lighting in here. Right now it's set to kind of a blue colour. I'll play about with different things and different brightnesses in addition to the ring light that I have over there, my old rickety ring light, and we'll see what we can come up with. So work in progress. And it's kind of fun. Although it did mean I took an extra half hour before I started recording today, setting up an Alexa, setting up bulbs, arguing with the app I didn't want to use, and then eventually caving and having to install the dang app. I don't mind installing an app to get something working. I just like to keep things neat. You know, the fewer the better. But we're done now. I also have a nice little lamp in my bedroom finally. Not a new one, it's an old one. An old one, I put this kind of retro shade on. But that's not important. This is the news, it's not the news in Hellfreezer's life. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, Thank you very much for listening and watching and listening. And take very good care of yourselves. Bye-bye. Forgot what I was doing for a second.